Good morning. I will talk to you about rethinking resettlement. This was a graduate studio that we conducted in spring 2016, working with International Institute of Buffalo and Broadway Fillmore Neighborhood Housing Services. We looked at strategies for developing supportive housing on the east side of Buffalo. The question of refugee resettlement is a favorite topic in public debates, but we're interested in these large numbers and what happens before the resettlers arrive here. We talk about 21 million refugees worldwide, 10 million stateless people. They oscillate between desperation and shock. But what we found out was actually the post-arrival stage is quite interesting. It's a lot less regimented, and it goes through these loose networks of nonprofits, institutions, agencies, public health outfits to help people, the new Americans, come and integrate in the new country. So if everything, all the story in Buffalo starts on the west side because it's all there. We all know about the success of the West Side Bazaar, endorsed by Katie Couric when she was here to talk about how Rust Belt cities are rebounding. So clearly this is part of the story. But what we found out was West Side Bazaar is not a single entity. When you look at this as a milieu, as a supportive environment, West Side is this kind of a porous, positive enclave where certain institutions, commercial and nonprofit entities support this rich environment to flourish. And for example, let's think about institutions. For example, this school, the Lafayette High School, which is now recovered with Principal Starkey. It's all about how these institutions reach out and actually start conditioning the environments that we live in. This was something that we were really interested in, this sort of socially mediated environment where different groups of students, different communities are supposed to spend time and follow certain rules of conduct, and by virtue of their relationship with an institutional body, they start to develop meaningful relationships. So when we started looking at the East Side, this is one of the student projects, we started to sort of think of East Side as this sort of, what are the institutional assets? What are the assets of support that we could leverage and maximize the benefits of these institutions, both for the new Americans and also the resident communities? It's very important. So for example, this student looked at how this Paderewski Drive, which is a predominantly and historically Polish neighborhood, how that could be retrofitted with carefully designed housing and also carefully sort of maximizing the existing institutions' effectiveness to create sort of a new supportive neighborhood, both for the low-income communities and also the new Americans. One thing that they looked at was learning from how some of these resilient neighborhood vernacular types, looking at this sort of taxonomy of forms like the telescopic housing or cottages, and how that could be interpreted for new housing through modular units. Another thing that we looked at was how to renovate existing housing. For example, this student looked at how to use these cottages as rental income properties to build wealth for some of the existing communities, and also come up with new types where you could actually have these new spaces to support commercial activity out of your home. Another thing we learned about was this sort of the social cooperation social and economic cooperation that exists in the East Side communities. One of the good examples is the Bangladeshi communities, who carry this know-how and support each other financially to create this kind of social cooperation, what Abdul Malik Simon calls an intersection of sociality, where groups of limited means support each other by sort of careful intersections. That's how West Side Bazaar works, actually. It's not what happens at the front, but what happens in the back. This EPA-compliant kitchen actually incubates and helps people build wealth and start their own businesses, etc. So one of this last project that I'm going to talk about actually address some of these issues at a very competent level. What these students suggested was to finish the Duffy Silk Mill with this new arm which was collapsed, and then actually put sort of daycare and a community kitchen and a restaurant to actually force sort of different groups that are resident and the newcomers to actually mix and sort of seek, sort of perhaps provide grants for cooperation and also build meaningful relationships. They also looked at how to retrofit that with sort of different ways of maybe transitional housing, not just for the new Americans, but also extreme low-income residents. And they also looked at how this could actually be maybe an urban strategy, just following the belt line and retrofitting some of these buildings with this sort of carefully precise interventions that could actually put this sort of social backpack, so to speak, into these buildings and then kind of generate, support these cooperative arrangements. So one of the important points for us was to actually develop a debate around this. This was very easy to do in the school. We work with people from School of Public Health, School of Social Work, but academia and architecture is all about precision. When we wanted to actually talk, sort of contribute to the larger public debate, and when we get to this arena, ideas lose their high resolution. They get grainier, the nuance is lost. So one of the questions was, how do we actually, but we do think that this is actually an important part of engaging with the public debate, to actually cultivate publics for the support of kind of a compassionate urbanism, which I would call, could make up what I would call Rust Belt cosmopolitan. So the question is, how can we actually make our endeavors clear enough and approachable enough so that we can actually contribute to the public debate at a very high level?